good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever in the world you are, wherever you are tuning in from. I do hope you can hear me okay. I've just had a couple of technical issues, which is why I was a few minutes late, so I apologize for that. Well, in the last 24 hours or so, we've heard from Rafa Nadal for the first time since he gave that press conference back in June, 2nd of June, and he even highlighted that, I think, during his interview. The interview was given in Spanish. He's also done a second interview, which I've seen today in Spanish newspaper AS. That is not a bad word. Coffee sip. It's actually the name of the newspaper, AS. So I think I'm going to need that for what's going to come, because we do have a bit of an epic episode today. Oh, great. You can hear me, and nice to see you about Madrid. So I'm basically just going to go through the interview that he gave to Movistar Plus. I am not a native speaker, but I have been living, breathing, learning, and drinking the language of Spanish for the best part of 10 years now. So let's get into it. The one with Movistar, we'll begin with that one, and then we will have a quick glance at AS before the end of the show. And I will come to your comments at the end of the show. But while I go through the process, I'll focus on what Rafa had to say, and then I'll come back to the comments at the end and see what you have to make of it, and I'll do my best to address those thoughts, questions, and concerns. And do get voting in our poll in the meantime, and do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Okay, let's get to it. The Movistar program began with a montage, basically, of various parts of Rafa's career, as we can see here, going through parts of his career, certain highlights, and Rafa was then basically wheeled out or brought to the front. Here we have the presenter of the show, Juanma, should remember Juan Manuel Castaño, I believe. Yes, Juanma Castaño. He's a well-known Spanish sports presenter. That's a good start, isn't it? Remember which country it is. I said I was going to address your comments at the end, Ghosty, and I will, but that's quite funny. Cool. So he gave these comments to Movistar Plus, and we're just going to have a quick, few thoughts on those today. I'm actually going to probably play them through my phone. That probably makes most sense, while I then take you through them. Let me know how you all are in the chat, and I promise I will address your questions and concerns at the end. Yeah, Bluetooth is on. Good. So yeah, here's the presenter. Just before, as I say, we had a few little moments from his career. As you can see, that's the beginning of the interview there. Cool. Now the music, by the way, is pretty cool. So during the montage, he was just given some sort of highlights of his career, Grand Slam wins, of course, Masters 1000s, and some Davis Cup heroics. The presenter begins by just saying, hi, we are here in the central of sports here at Movistar. And hi, Rafa, how are you? I'm good. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm happy. You've come here to play golf with Pau Gasol, right? Pau Gasol is a basketball player. It's for the Banco Santander, his foundation. Are you much better than Pau at golf? Pau is a basketball star from Spain who plays in the US. How do you feel about playing golf? He says, by the way, ask Pau for how good I am at golf. But of course, in the last few months, I haven't played golf at all. So, yeah, you can imagine that, of course, because of the hip impact on that too. And yeah, so there we go. Okay. Do get voting in our poll, by the way, as to whether you think we will see Rafa Nadal again this year or next, or maybe not at all. He has also given another interview to AS, which I'll address at the end. That's a Spanish newspaper, by the way. So yeah, he's asked about this Golf Foundation event that he played with Pau Gasol in Santander. It's a kind of obviously a nice little warmer to introduce the interview.
¿Cómo estás?
I don't know much about Pau Gasol, but so the golf event was in Santander in the north of Spain. Obviously, Rafa lives in Mallorca, but he's on the mainland right now, giving a few interviews, first since November. So first since June. So I haven't had the opportunity to play golf really since June. I do enjoy it though. Now the presenter says, we've been looking forward to speak to you for a long time. 8 months since you played, the presenter says, in Australia. And it's 4 months now since you gave that press conference in Mallorca. Now, of course, there was the chance of playing the Davis Cup, but that's gone now with Spain eliminated. So the presenter then shows a kind of a letter. It's kind of written in it's done in a sort of very romantic way. The presenter then shows a few clips of him writing a letter to, let's see if we can see this. We then see, basically the presenter then writes a letter, and it's like going through some of his career highlights, and this is why we wanted to talk to you. So I'm going to talk about that now. Picks up a pen. For us, we're feeling this eternally, is the letter that he's writing. This year, Roland Garros missed you. It's a really big miss without watching you fight against the clay and the wind and the conditions. The admiration of the public in Paris, 14 titles there. And of course, 22 altogether. You've fought against everything, he writes. We want to see you continue to fight and enjoy. We want to see you return like the day and the night, as we see this image here of Wimbledon. And we want to see you return with the same hunger. We want to see you do the impossible. We want to see you lying on the ground in victory. Emotional. For these emotions, we're just seeing some of the moments of him falling to the floor. For us, it's eternal. He finishes the letter. So then we kind of get into the interview itself. As you can see, some of these images of him on the floor. And there's the sort of letter that he was penning that they would occasionally go to with some emotional. Okay, Cool. Let's get into the interview itself. That was kind of all. How do you see your life in the last 4 months? Different phases, he says. When I was in the academy the last time, giving the press conference, I didn't know if I was going to recover. That's the reality. Basically, I needed a break. I needed some time away. Because it was basically a really difficult, hard 18 months. From Indian Wells in 2022, when I injured my rib playing against Carlos Alcaraz in the semi-final, until basically the press conference in Mallorca. So that period, year and a half more or less, I didn't have a single moment of tranquility. That's the reality. The day-by-day training was very difficult, very hard. And finally, I couldn't go to Roland Garros. And I had to stop to recover. We were analyzing everything in the psoas, the hip, where he had the injury from Australia. I couldn't return for any period of time. I had an operation. It was a good operation. I can't play Roland Garros, and I had to disconnect. It was an important operation. So there were some months, just recuperating and doing, nothing to do with sport or tennis. But after, okay, I had time with my family to go traveling for 5 weeks. I enjoyed 5 weeks traveling. The presenter sort of says 5 weeks traveling. Oh, nice. Were you training during that 5 weeks? I mean, I did go to the gymnasium, but how do you disconnect, Rafa? Well, the hours during the day for me to disconnect are completely different. It's my way of escaping. I think he went to Greece, by the way. I had a good time with my family, of course. He was away from his mobile phone, he said, and even the TV, to really just have. Did you watch any tennis? You don't like to watch tennis, the interviewer says? Just for no reason. I can pass the page very quickly, he says. If I'm not there, I'm not watching much. I want to be in peace. So I don't watch the places where I'd like to be, of course. Of course, many times in my life or in my career, I've had to, miss tournaments. I wanted to have the disconnection. I wanted to or disconnect. I did watch the final of Wimbledon, he says. For those of you joining in the chat, I can see Ghosty and Sean. I will address your points at the end. And yeah, I'll get to them at the end, as I say. Please do hit the subscribe button in the meantime. But yeah, I'll come to your points at the end. I do promise you that. But for now, I'll just focus on the interview. So he watched the Wimbledon final. I did watch the US Open final too. You see, if it's not that I don't like to watch tennis, it's just that if I started watching it, then I wouldn't be disconnected. Of course, I can't dislike something that I've been doing all my life. Ghosty, I didn't know you'd liked and subscribed. How about that? Welcome to the club. Cool. So, back to the interview. You haven't changed your character then, the interviewer asks. The pain that I was having on a daily basis was the only thing that would change my character. I feel good, but mentally I feel good. But I was, of course, sadder in the past with so much pain. The foot, he now mentions the foot for the first time. Like sometimes he couldn't leave home. I'm just going to go back on that one just to get the clarity on what he said about the foot. Honestly, the pain in my foot. I was sadder during this time. I had a really bad foot that wouldn't let me live calmly. Sometimes I couldn't leave home, but this happens. This happens. It's really difficult to be happy when you have this much pain. Right now, I have a pain controlled, let's say. Anyway, it's a part of my life. I don't have a concrete plan right now. I have dreams, but what's your dream? Okay, so we've got quite an important moment here. The interviewer rightly sort of just sort of says, what are your ilusión is the Spanish word, which is like what are your dreams? What are your hopes? What do you expect? And Rafa does say, I want to come back to play. You have a dream. I want to be competitive. I guess that's one of the key lines. I know we've seen plenty on social media. One of the reasons I'm doing this, by the way, is just because I think it's quite important that we get all the context and all the words. I'm not really going to interpret what he's saying. That I'll leave up to you. Listen, I want to return. I want to play, but I don't want to give you the idea that I'm returning to win the French Open or Australian Open. I don't want to confuse the people, the fans, with this notion. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but the things change very quickly in sport. But I'm not a dreamer. Um, I'm a realist. I will face the difficulties that I have to face. One thing that you cannot avoid, that is unavoidable, basically, is your age. But at the moment, the physical issues don't mean I can train 100%. I still have that illusion, though, to return, to play, and be competitive. But let's see. Let's see where I am. This is not the moment, by the way, when he talks about November. I think that's probably one of the few things that I have not seen covered too much. We'll come to that in a second. But he does talk about November being a big moment. Let's say in about 2 months, but we'll come to that shortly. I'm still in the process of recovery. Okay, so actually, I think the press conference was in May. I apologize, not in June. Um, so the presenter now says, you said in May that 2024 was going to be your last year. So that's what you said in that press conference in Mallorca. And then Rafa sort of slightly corrects the presenter by saying, listen, I said possibly. It's possibly my last year. Possibly it'll be my last year, he repeats. I can't confirm anything 100% right now. And on that topic, make sure you get voting in the poll. I do think that there are a million possibilities that could end up playing out. I think, but then he does address it again. He does say that I think there's many chances, many possibilities that next year will be my last year. Because at the end, how is my body? But I'm open to all possibilities, though. Now the presenter then asks, have you sort of planned out, have you got a drawing? Do you imagine how your final months or year or so on tour will be? What's the plan? You must have preferences, is the presenter is saying. Do you have it? So finally, sort of, are you clear on what you want to do in 2024? No, he says. I'm not clear. For me, the way it's, there's a chance that I don't recover my career. He says maybe I can't be competitive, or maybe I can be competitive, but not at a great level. I mean, he says he's basically giving out some sort of negative possibilities, but he then also stops and says, "Look, I do hope that that doesn't turn out that way. That any plan I could possibly say to you, might not materialize. So it's just impossible." I just don't know. Honestly, I don't feel the necessity to respond or think about, a plan or a route. Okay, here we come to that line that I don't think is reported too much, but I think for me it was one of the biggest takeaways from the interview, which was about the next 2 months. So 2024 is just too far away, but I hope that in the next 2 months I can have a clearer answer as to where I am. So there may be another Manacor press conference in Manacor in Mallorca to look forward to in November. That's my words, by the way, not his about the press conference in November. But yes, so I'll have hopefully I'll have a much clearer idea. He says inside the next 2 months, but he then sort of specifies sort of November, and I'm guessing about the middle of November. I'm training 40 minutes a day, 3 days a week. One thing that I don't think has been addressed, I get the impression he's not picked up a racket, and that would be a question I would have liked to have asked him, but I don't think he's picked up a racket since May. For those of you commenting in the chat, I will address your concerns and questions at the end. That's me talking, by the way, not Rafa. But he does repeat that I do want to play again and at the maximum level I can. Of course, though, we are thinking about, so again, the presenter now says, we are thinking primarily about the clay tournaments, Barcelona, Madrid, Roland Garros. And of course, next year, this is the presenter suggesting, next year, of course, the Olympics will be in Paris, also on clay, in Roland Garros. I'm just realistic, Rafa says. But yeah, I would like to play there. But okay, so he's talking about his calendar for next year. Okay, this is interesting stuff, and this is quite clear for me. So he then says, if, let's say, around this time of the clay court tournaments are beginning in I guess about April, May, the aforementioned tournaments, including Rome, of course, but also then with one eye on the Olympics next year, which will be obviously a couple of months after Roland Garros. He says basically, if I think at that period I do have a chance of winning Roland Garros, so here's a positivity. It's a positivity for Nadal fans. If I do have the possibility, that will affect my calendar, and so therefore it might affect the tournaments that he plays or doesn't play before and then after. Possibly even having a lighter. I think in a way, if you see him at every tournament in those Spanish tournaments in particular, in Barcelona, Madrid, actually it might mean that he doesn't think he can win Roland Garros. If you see him being very selective at the clay court tournaments beforehand, maybe just playing one or two before Roland Garros, it may mean that he thinks he has a possibility of going far. Anyway, I will have to choose which tournaments to play, he says, if I'm in a condition where I could win Roland Garros. And I have to ignore sort of sentiments at that point. I have to think about what'll take me to the best chance of winning Roland Garros. We would like to know, the presenter says, where would you like to play your last match? I don't know, he says. I just don't know. Do you mean my official last match of tennis? I just don't know where I could be able to. So now he says, look, um, I said that 2024 will possibly be, or we're getting an idea, it will probably be his last year. But what about if I feel good, next year? And I have a complete recovery? I just don't know. Suddenly I'm feeling good. I don't want to. I don't want to say one thing now and then have a different. So just imagine that I have a great recovery in 2024. I feel really good. I don't want to say one thing now and then do another thing later. I'm just not thinking about that. My last match, for example, where it will be. It all depends on my physical situation, and that will decide where I am mentally. Okay, so now we're going on a slightly different track from the presenter, talking about the Grand Slam race. So, of course, now Djokovic has 24, you have 22. How do you feel? Nothing, he says. What I've said always. Just going to go back a second on this just so I get it clear. The fans are talking about this. Djokovic 24, you and 22. How do you feel? Nothing, he says. I feel what I've said always. Uh, you know, are you asking me? Are you asking me if I would like to have the most Grand Slams in history? Of course, without a doubt. Of course, this is sport, to try and do the best possible. Has it been an obsession for me? Does it frustrate? Not neither. It doesn't. Neither. At, at the end, I cannot be frustrated. I cannot. This is something he said before. You can't be frustrated. You can't be looking at what other people have. If somebody has a bigger car than you, or whatever. The life. I've done everything I can within my possibilities. Now the interviewer says to Rafa, "You can't be frustrated, of course, with 22 Grand Slams. It's it's impossible to be frustrated with 22 Grand Slams." Rafa says, "Yes, it's possible. For example, I think Novak, in this way, in this meaning, in this way, for Novak, for him, it would have been a frustration not to get it, but maybe that's why he achieved it." And then, okay, so now the interviewer says, "Do you think he was more anxious for that? Do you think he, was such a big thing?" "Yeah, I think so," Rafa says. I think the ambition and a really ambitious person, maybe that's why he achieved it. But anyway, I have my way of life. We have different ways of life. We live different ways. I didn't live in this way. No, but I'm happy. But would I change anything? Would I like to change anything? Yeah, I'd like to change many things. I would like to change many things in my career. I would like to maybe have protected myself physically. And now the presenter says, "Did you play too much?" No, I didn't play too much. No, I didn't play too much. I played. No, I didn't play too much. When I was younger, I played a lot of more tournaments. But it's many years since I played every tournament on tour. Okay. Now the presenter says, "Do you know how many Grand Slams you missed?" And Rafa says, "No, I don't know how many." 14, the presenter says. "Do you know how many Federer missed?" 10. So Rafa says no, of course. And the presenter says 10. "Do you know how many Djokovic has missed?" And Rafa says almost none. Just one for injury, Djokovic has missed. Of course, they are not highlighting the ones he's missed due to his COVID status. So they do then highlight. There's two for his COVID status and one through injury. I've missed, now Rafa's talking, yeah, I've missed 4.5 years of my career. Yeah, almost. And then the presenter says, almost 5 years of your career through injury. That's the reality, he says. But that's part of sport as well. That doesn't mean anything, Rafa says. I did what I could, and I'm here. He then talks about, maybe winning 3 more Grand Slams, but he says, no, that's very unlikely. Listen, all the decisions I took in the moment, thinking what was the best decision for my career. Hey, what do you think about, now again a different sort of direction? Hey, what do you think about Carlos Alcaraz, Rafa? Do you see, so again, this is towards Rafa, the presenter, saying, do you see a projection for him? Do you see, unbelievable moments in the future for him? Are we jumping the gun? Are we being a bit early here to look at comparisons and to see this possible incredible career ahead? Rafa says no, it's logical. With a new player on tour, and he's already reaching world number one, and he's won 2 Grand Slams. It's not an exaggeration. He has the youth, he has the potential. He has big possibilities. But of course, many things can happen. But of course, he has huge potential. Of course, he won't be. This is Rafa now saying, I can't be too clear on his future or his career. But he just needs to keep improving, and he is. If he continues improving always and stays motivated, and he has an unbelievable projection if he achieves those things. I mean, for me, it was always about just improving every day. Yeah, that was always my ambition. Some days I didn't improve, but that was always my ambition. Do you, now he's being asked by the presenter, do you miss the arena, the courts, the fans? Look, he says, it's really difficult to explain, Rafa says. It's really difficult to put into words. What, right now, it's probably a bit too early for me to say whether I miss it. Ask me in the future how much I miss it. But it's, of course, if I can't come back, I will miss it hugely. Now it's just going back to this point about so that's the presenter just going back to the point about 40 minutes a day, 3 days a week training. So I'm just going back on this because it's also quite an important moment for the interview. So yeah, the presenter sort of wants to go back on this point about 40 minutes a day training, 3 days a week. I'm a bit being specific. So he's asked about this 40 minutes training, which I believe is without a racket. It's in the gym. Because then actually Rafa does say, it's boring. It bores me. I want to play tennis. um, so yeah, but yeah, of course it's boring. Uh, 40 minutes in the gym. I want to pick up a ball. But I don't put the same intensity into training as I do practicing or playing. But I have to be patient. But it's always bored me. It's not just now. The gym, 40 minutes has always bored me. Do you, now we're going off in a different direction, do you maintain a relationship with the players on tour? Djokovic, Federer, or whatever? Or are you a person that sort of, when you leave the tour, you disconnect? No, I haven't sent Djokovic a message recently. I can see lots of comments in the chat. I will address them at the end. We're coming towards the end of the interview now. But no, the reality is I'm not in touch with many people on tour. Yeah, I've sent Carlos a couple of messages when he's won big titles. But I'm not really in touch with anyone on the tour. You know, I'm obviously from an older generation. So I'm still in touch with Federer. Okay, now the interview asks about Federer's kids coming to his academy. No, they just came for one day. And I didn't want. They were doing many different sports there. This is Federer's kids. How old is your child now? Almost a year, he says. Just going to go back on this because I didn't quite hear it. You've got a child almost 1 year, right? Yeah. Has he had a racket in his hand? No, not yet. No. I haven't done a photo with him with a racket, no. But if he does pick up a racket, he'll just do it like he does with spoons, which is just throw them. Listen, I've always liked kids, he says. And of course, if it's one of mine, even more. Do you sleep well? Does hang on a second. So now it's also about the baby. Do you rest well? Do you sleep well? If I need to sleep well, if I need to rest well, I do. I'm a father with him a lot at home. And how is a day of yours? Just a normal day for you? So from 9 until 2, I'm normally working in the academy. You know, uh, that of course would include 40 minutes in the gym. And then at 2 o'clock, I'll return home. Also, if I can have the chance to play golf. Do you compete when playing golf? Yeah, yeah, I'm competitive. It's a good distraction for me, he says. But yeah, I do like to compete. But I have many things to do. Sometimes I'm here, sometimes I'm doing things for Banco Santander or okay, future, longer future. How do you see things? Oh, he just quickly say that golf is the only thing he can play competitively at the moment. No, I don't have long-term plans or what attracts you most? Is there a, okay. Now he's just being asked about, whether he'd like to be a coach of a player. Yeah, why not? But yeah, some weeks maybe, but maybe not a whole year. I love tennis. It will always be a big part of my life. now, now, the interview goes off in a very different direction. With hey, what about becoming president of Real Madrid Football Club, soccer club? If I want to be, he says. Hmm, is you know what happens? I don't know. You know what? I don't know. I would like a response. He says. I saw. Listen, now the presenter saying, "Look, I saw the pause. I saw a silence when I asked the question, which makes me think that yeah, something's happening." Is it in your dreams? No, no. If I would, it's not in my dream, but if I would like, maybe, yeah. But before anything, many things. After, it's difficult to tell tomorrow. Never mind far in the future. I think I would like to, yeah. President of Real Madrid. I don't know if I have the capacity though. Has Florentino ever asked you? Florentino Perez, the president of Real Madrid? No, no, no. He's never asked me. I don't want to say something that will go out into the press right now. And I'm a member. That's it. A member of, and I see him in the stadium. Now he's just talking about football, soccer. It's just the beginning of the season. Yeah, and he's just talking about injuries for the football team, Courtois and other players that are injured. So he's talking about soccer right now. So for those of you tuning into Talking Tennis, we are just have Rafa Nadal talking about soccer, football, as we would call it elsewhere, outside the US and Australia. Bellingham was a spectacular signing, he said. Bellingham, he says, spectacular. So there we go for English soccer fans. There's a quote for you. Rafa Nadal says Bellingham was a spectacular signing. Of course, Bellingham has scored many goals already at the beginning of his time in Madrid. Oh, and now he's asked, do you like Mbappe? Yeah, of course. Who doesn't like Mbappe? Welcome to Talking Soccer, by the way. We have just got a couple more minutes on this. If, of course, he returns to the topic of tennis or says something big, I'll let you know. But yeah, the last sort of 5 minutes of this interview, just he's talking about, yeah, of course, I would like Mbappe to sign for Madrid. Comments, by the way, keep them coming in. I will be addressing them in a minute because we are coming towards the end of the interview. Okay, now there's just sort of some messages from people and fans, and I think we're coming to the end. Yep. It's been a pleasure, he says, to speak with you, etc., etc., etc. So, back to you guys. He has also given an interview, as I said earlier, in the Spanish newspaper AS, or AS as it's called in Spain. And he said some more interesting things there as well. We'll have a quick look at that interview as well. Let me just see if I can find it very quickly for you. Here we go. So I'll share this with you on the screen, and I will just spend a couple of...
Conoce a los denims.
So the headline here in AS is if I'm going to be competitive and enjoy, it's because I don't want to put limits on it. Is the headline here, so we can just see that one too. Let's though focus on the one he gave to Movistar, and just come back to you in the chat before we bring this to a close. There's been lots and lots of comments there, so I will be addressing them. Thanks, Ghosty, for tuning in as well, and all of you. We'll just spend another few minutes just having a quick look at this. Just having a quick look here, Ryan. Does it kill him? I don't think it kills him, but I probably would agree that it probably does annoy him a little bit more than he would confess. I do remember Rafa saying, for example, the Team Djokovic final of Australia in 2020, that he wanted Dominic Thiem to win. So I think that that tells you something. So Ghosty there making questions about the interviewer. To be honest with you, Ghosty, I would say until this interview, I was still a bit more focused on the hip, but You may have a point. I know it's been a speculation amongst one or two sports journalists. I don't know how close their contact are that the foot is still the issue, and it might well be the one that finishes his career. Sean there, if he wins another major, it'll be a miracle. I agree. That would be a miracle, but then there have been one or two others in his career. I think it's a bit more than 2 hours, but yeah, no, he went to Greece. Yeah, we'll discover the rest of the world one day, Ghosty, when we get out of our little circle. If there were members that Rafa watches tends to do things. Listen, I know she came to his academy to give a presentation and a speech earlier this year, so maybe he does that. But as he said during the interview, he has barely watched tennis in the last few months, other than a couple of Grand Slam finals. Okay. Yeah, I think you're right there. I think the media training is something. Rodrigo, by the way, suggesting that the interview was disgraceful. Interesting take. Hi, Nerland, by the way. And hi, Rodrigo, too. And also Sean. Yeah, Ivan, I think we'd all like one more. I think we'd all like one more of those. Interestingly, of course, they have a head-to-head, which I think is 29-28 in Djokovic's favor, so it's just one between them. I'm sure for Rafa fans, they'd like it to be on clay, whereas I'm sure Djokovic fans would like it to be on any other surface pretty much, but hardcourt probably even more. Some faulty towers references there. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I think I get that. I think it's just because I think with Kyrgios, because he hasn't got so many trophies, it's probably more viable. Does that make sense, Ghosty? I think it does. So thank you as well, Zainab, for your comment there as well. Great to have you on board. Make sure you hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new. We are just bringing this to an end. Do check out this article if you can, of course, which is today. So I think he's given 2 interviews, one to As and one to Movistar. Movistar being the bigger one, but there's been another interview today with a newspaper in Spain. So make sure you check that one out. And of course, you can all copy and paste and put it into whatever translation website of preference you have. Some things repeating here. And there's just something here from in As that he's just talking about, which is, will you be returning to train? Have you returned to train, with your team? And he says, yeah, I'm with my team every day. But working really in the gymnasium and rehabilitation. Sometimes with double sessions in the morning and the afternoon. Anyway, check that newspaper article out. We'll just return to the chat just one more time just to see if there's any more things I can address there. And in the meantime, do make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new. I think so, Ghost. Yeah, I think he is. You do see there's a body language moment as well when he sort of points like this. And I think probably body language, it's maybe the most important thing, which, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. I mean, it's, yeah. That's a great one, Ghosty. I like that. Yeah, and sorry about the soccer references, but that's just how the Spanish media obviously wanted to take it, and they wanted to get some quotes to see if he was into that. And now some talks about some of the events going on in Asia. Okay, listen, that's the translation done of the interview. Of course, I didn't get every single word, and I couldn't do everything, but I think I got the majority. Hopefully, it gives a bit more context to that interview you gave with Movistar. All the stuff, like and subscribe and all the rest of it. And we'll be back with you soon. More shows to come. Going to be speaking to Gemma Stevenson later on today about the wheelchair tournaments in the US recently, of course, and also a broader look at wheelchair tennis in general. That'll be coming up in a couple of hours. And Yeah, and also I think tomorrow we're going to do some double stuff as well. Sorry about the delay in terms of obviously those tournaments finishing about a month or so ago. Sorry, a month ago. It wasn't that long ago, 10 days ago. But it's just been a very busy 10 days. And yeah, we'll be catching up on the wheelchair tennis and the doubles tennis from New York today and tomorrow. So make sure you like and subscribe and all that other stuff. And I'm going to give you another reminder here as well. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.